Welcome back to the Bringing the Human Back to Human Resources podcast, the replay series. I'm your host, Tracy Chernoff, and I'm thrilled to have you join us once again as we journey through the episodes that have topped charts around the world. In this podcast series, we're revisiting some of our most insightful, thought-provoking, and transformative conversations with industry experts, thought leaders, and practitioners. These episodes have made waves, sparking meaningful conversation and inspiring positive change throughout human resources. Whether you're a dedicated listener who's been with us from the start or you're just tuning in for the first time, the replay series offers a chance to dive deep into the core principles that guide our exploration into HR practices. So get ready to rediscover the discussions that continue to shape the future of HR. Without further ado, let's step back in time and immerse ourselves into the podcast's top charted episodes. Let the replay begin. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here for another week. I have basically an HR celebrity on the podcast this week, so much so that I was not sure that I'd be able to effectively grab his attention in his DMs to bring him on as a guest. You might know him. You might love him. You might not know him, but you're going to love him. His name is Clark, aka, and I know this is going to rhyme, the HRShark. I have to tell you, I edited all of the stuff that came before this moment out because it was absolute chaos. I could not get my thoughts together, and then I realized it's late in the day, and I haven't had coffee yet. So I now have coffee in my hand. If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, you can see that the mug says, I woke up like this. And I didn't exactly wake up like this. This is just how I look after a long day of work. Nevertheless, now that I've had coffee, I can get my thoughts together. And this is going to make for a great episode. Clark is the HRShark. I wonder if he realizes that that rhymes. I'll have to ask him. Anyway, Clark is an HR leader on Wall Street. He is a career coach and a content creator. And when I mentioned that he was effectively an HR celebrity, I mean it. It is because he has over 30,000 followers between Instagram and TikTok. And let me tell you, Clark makes incredible content. The first time that I spoke with him over video, I think I had asked him like how he kind of like keeps it going, how he finds the energy to do it, because I can tell you it is not easy to do. I know it looks easy for, especially for HR people because it's just like content based on like what you've experienced, but it is really hard. And I'm telling you, Clark, the HRShark, he posts a lot, like he has so much content. It's very inspiring. Anyway, I thought it would be really fun to have the HRShark on the podcast, not only to talk about how he kind of like rose into this position and, status on social media, but also to understand like why he brings so much humor and how he's able to do that to this industry and this career. And you all know, I talk about it all the time, like HR has its stigmas. You've already heard the episode with the People Problems podcast ladies, Alexa and Tyson. We talked all about these HR misconceptions, and it's true. And I love that Clark kind of like takes all of those stigmas and really pokes fun at it, because I think at some level we have to laugh at ourselves. We have to laugh at what we do, and we have to appreciate that some of this stuff is just so crazy. So I think you're really going to love this episode. I know I'm really excited about speaking with Clark. And if you do not yet follow Clark on Instagram or TikTok, you absolutely must do that either before, during, or after this episode. His handles on Instagram and TikTok are at HRShark_. I will, of course, as always, put it in the show notes so you can easily click the link as well. But you have to make sure you follow him, because I'm telling you, his videos, his advice, his posts will really brighten your day. And they always come along right when you need them. And I love that. Anyway, without further ado, please join me in celebrating this amazing guest to have on, Clark, the HRShark. Clark, the HRShark. You are officially on the podcast. I'm so excited about this. How are you?
I'm doing well, Tracy. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I did. I know I shared this with you, but I did intro you as a celebrity. So you're just going to have to accept this. This is your fate now. You're an HR celebrity, and that's that. I don't make the
Oh
rules.
man, I'll take what I can get.
I love it. Well, you were telling me a story that I can't even start this conversation without coming back to this, because you were telling me before we started recording this story about how the HRShark name came to be, because I mentioned, hey, it rhymes with your first name, Clark. Is that a coincidence? So why don't you tell us the story about how HRShark became HRShark?
Yeah, so actually growing up, Clark the Shark just like rhymed. It actually being a very young age, my first Halloween costume was a shark. And from there, it's actually like fate being in HR because I have a really direct personality and just kind of call it how it is. And so my friends just started calling me the Shark just growing up, but stuck in college, and even into the workplace. They're like, the Shark is here. And so it just made sense. And when I created my own business, that HRShark would be the name of it. So
I love it. I love it. This is the kind of shark that we all want to see, out there, right? This is the good kind of
good
shark.
shark, friendly shark, here to help, absolutely.
Right. But hey, you know what? Actually, maybe sharks need a little rebranding moment of their own.
Yeah, exactly. I know even like Shark Tank, they get a lot of bad rap sometimes of being harsh, but it's just direct and it's just straight business
Totally.
is what the shark name
Totally.
comes to.
Hey, at least you can always trust that they're being honest, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No emotions.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm so excited that you're on the podcast. I really didn't think that I was even going to be able to reach you because, again, you're a celebrity. And, celebrities are busy people and you have, a lot going on. And for you to be on my podcast is truly amazing. And I'm super excited to give the listeners an inside scoop into who you are, because on TikTok and Instagram, you are serving all of your followers with amazing, hysterical HR humor and content every single day and like repeatedly throughout the day. And that takes a lot of work. So now I'm going to give you the opportunity to kind of share a little bit more about your career journey and also your HRShark journey, because this is also part of your career. This is a whole business for you. So how you got to where you are in your career today, because you are an HR leader and you do have experience in the field. You don't just make fun of it and find the humor in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, I'm a true HR person through and through. So I guess I'll start way back. So I'm actually from a very small town in Ohio, a really, really tiny town. Grew up like essentially a farm boy in cornfields. You never would have guessed it what I'm doing today. But yeah, so started out of school. I went to the Ohio State University, a proud undergrad from Ohio State, proud Buckeye. After school, I went to an HR rotational program where I traveled all around the country in HR doing an HR journalist type of role and really cut my teeth, learned your typical FMLA, short-term disability, those types of HR type of policies. And then from there, I landed in Fort Worth, Texas with my last rotation of that program. And manufacturing just wasn't for me. It was just not really my passion sat at the time. So I pivoted into banking. So I made the move over to Capital One. Capital One is a great company, very tech-oriented firm. And so really that's where I found my niche in HR, which is specifically in technology. And so I spent about 2 years there. And then from Capital One, I'm currently at the firm, which is a big Wall Street bank. I'm not going to mention the name on the podcast, but right there, I'm currently supporting a big, large group within the firm. And like, if you would have told me the small town boy from Ohio would be where I am today, I would have told you you're absolutely crazy. And that's really what made me create my business, HRShark. From there, I wanted to give back to people because a lot of people don't escape the small towns. They get stuck in the routines of being in a small town. There's nothing really else out there. And so with HRShark, my goal is to give back and to help those people because I've been so fortunate to get to where I am today. And so it really just started with like, how do I reach an audience? How do I get to people to find me, to figure out who I am? That really started with like HR humor. So everyone like gives HR a bad name. And so instead of like trying to fight back and just stand up for HR, just like spin it into a positive way and make it for a laugh. And people can really learn from that. And that's really, really where my platforms have taken off. It's like you spin evil HR as a funny joke. It's like you'll see me laughing evil and like talk about like, hey, don't tell a recruiter how much money you make. So that way you make more money and you're negotiating at the end of the interview process. So little things like that have really helped me and helped my brand in terms of HR. But yeah, I'm an HR person through and through. Love it. I crack jokes at it all the time, but at the end of the day, I always stand up for HR. So
I love it. Well, this is truly like an HR characteristic. Loving what you do and also finding all of the ways to poke holes and poke fun at the career and the industry. And actually, I think it's what makes for a really strong HR leader is like understanding where some of these stigmas kind of sit and almost like working to be a catalyst to those things. And I think what I love the most about your content is the evil HR, because it's hysterical and people really enjoy the content that has to do with like their actual lives and their careers. You have over 30,000 followers between Instagram and TikTok. Like that is incredible. And, you know, it's 30,000 people that are actively engaging in the work that you're doing. When did you first realize this potential for being able to have the fun and also educate? And then beyond that, what do you think makes HR such an easy target for some of this like commiserating that we do with one another, and also, you know, laughing at our own stigmas?
Yeah, so it really started, I mean, I've been giving like career advice my whole career. Just like friends and family would reach out and just say, hey, you're in HR, help me with this, help me with that. And just helping so many friends and family over the years, they're like, hey, you should get on Instagram and TikTok and do this. And I typically, I'm a very straight-laced person. Like, I'm like, originally, if you would have told me I'm on TikTok with almost 30,000 followers, I'd have been like, you're absolutely crazy. That's for like a bunch of Gen Zs that want to dance and stuff. But it turned into a thing. It was like the algorithm just took off, and it would just be able to help and get exposure to more and more people. And it's like the community that I've built has been like nothing but amazing. Like just reaching out, like your videos have helped me escape a toxic environment. It's helped me negotiate more money. It's helped me pay for my kids' college. Like stuff like that has really impacted me personally. And it feels like I'm giving back to the greater good versus just myself personally in my career. And so that's why I really like am passionate about it. And it's just grown from there. I feel like if you can really add value to people's lives on your different platforms, TikTok and Instagram, that's where it starts to grow. And you're just truly out there just trying to sell something. It's bigger than that. And so that's where I feel like I've really helped just in 6 months. Like literally 6 months ago, I didn't even know how to post a story on Instagram. Like I had to ask my fiance, like, hey, how do I post this? Like I have no idea. And then now it's like, I batch my content on the weekends, I crank it out. And so I automate everything during the week. I'm super busy. But yeah, it's total fun. It's a really good time. But your second question, in terms of why HR kind of sticks out. If I had a dollar for every time someone was like, HR is not your friend, they protect the company. Like, I think me and Warren Buffett would be like spending time together, because it's like, I get it. Like, I understand the perspective. And HR is that role where when we do our jobs right and people are growing and they're developing within the organization is increasing their bottom line and driving results. Like, HR is not the function that gets the pat on the back. They're not the ones to be like, oh, HR is the one that record-breaking profits because of that. Like, you're never going to hear that. But in the reverse of that, when the economy takes a downturn and takes a pullback, like HR runs to the front, right? And we're the leaders that kind of help the organization drive through that turbulent time. And a lot of it falls back on us in terms of like we're the blame, because they see us visibly in terms of like layoffs, different things going on within the company, and they think that's HR's fault. So it's easy to say HR doesn't do anything. They just sit in the back office and follow what leaders do. But like, as HR people know, we know what goes on behind the scenes, and we are there to absolutely do what's best for the employee at the end of the day, as well as keeping the organization and their goals in line as well.
Totally. It's true. I mean, and we'll get into some of the misconceptions. And actually, I feel like I've been on a little bit of a misconceptions theme recently, because actually by the time that our episode comes out, there will be an episode that was already released where it's a second part to a podcast swap that I did with the People Problems podcast. And we talk all about the misconceptions. And so this is a bit of a road show for me this summer. But before we get into some of those misconceptions, I think we can both agree being in HR is tough. It is definitely not for the faint of heart. It can be thankless most often. And, it's definitely hard enough. But being a social media personality or, business, anyone that's like really fully putting themselves out there on social media is also really hard. How do you balance it all? And how do you find ways to kind of keep it fun and keep that energy for, behind why you started it at the forefront?
Yeah, it's tough. And I mentioned a little bit earlier. So on the weekend, I'll batch it all. So I'll make 15 to 20 videos. And then just over the weekend, when I'm like in the car, like we're going somewhere to dinner, and I'll let my significant other drive, and I'll just edit my videos. We're sitting there on the couch watching Netflix in and out and just edit the videos. And so I do a lot of it there. And I find a lot of my content actually just like being a consumer, right? And consuming the like different like on the different platforms. So understanding what's trending, what's going on, and just really taking those videos that are trending sounds and different effects, and really just putting my own spin on it. So what would I relate to? What would I think is funny? And it's really just helped me develop that muscle in terms, because like working in corporate America, like I don't get to use the creative muscle. I mean, working for a big bank, like there isn't like I can't reinvent the wheel every single day at work, right? And so being able to create my own content and put that creative thinking has really developed that for me personally. And it's like almost like a different side of me that I haven't really seen before. And it's like I have my friends who are like, did you create this? Who created this content? I'm like, it's all me. It's just really just a different type of different personality of myself that I don't really get to express that much. And so that's really what brings out the fun in me. But it's tough. Like you have to be consistent. You have to like it's all about automation, right? Like using softwares to help automate posting. So during the day, like I'm in meetings, like those stuff that goes out during the middle of the days, and it's like, oh wow, that did pretty well. And like I'm not seeing it until I step out of work. But it's all about automation. It's all about keeping it fun and doing it, because during the weeks is when you get the most engagement. So
right. No, that's really helpful. And I'm sure that there are listeners out there that are going to love the questions at the end of this episode that I have for you, specifically for those who might want to do something kind of along the same lines and really allow their creative juices to flow, if you will. But before we get on to that fun stuff, let's talk a little bit about these misconceptions and these stigmas. What are some of the misconceptions in your opinion that people have with HR, and why is HR so misunderstood?
Yeah, so I would think some of the biggest ones, it's like, oh, HR is the one who decides who to fire people. And so we can advise. So we advise on what's going on. And the way I look at it from an HR perspective is like, we don't fire anybody, and managers don't fire anybody. Like employees fire themselves. Like it's clear as day, like what the policy reads. And if they don't understand that's where HR needs to do a better job of understanding what's right and wrong in your workplace. And so HR is typically like managers will hide behind that. You'll see it in some of the organizations I've been at previously is they will hide behind HR because they don't want to have a tough conversation. At the end of the day, I feel like I spend the majority of my job is just coaching managers, advising managers to have those tough conversations when it comes to year end, when it comes to compensation. It's just having those tough conversations. So HR typically is a scapegoat in terms of like, hey, like it's HR's fault because of the budget. Like we don't run the budgets. Like don't give us that much credit. Like as much like if we had a budget, HR would be paid the highest out of any other function within the organization. yeah, exactly. We run super lean, and so it's like there's not very many of us to go around. And so if there was, we'd be hiring everybody to get everybody nice bonuses in HR, but we don't have that much power. So don't give us that much credit.
Right. I totally agree. I also think, people always want someone to blame when there are difficult things that happen, right? And anytime, if someone's laid off, someone's fired, I agree. When it's like something that the employee can control, they do let themselves go because we can only control what we can control. And performance is one of those things. But in circumstances where, it's just an unfortunate business decision, it does kind of lessen the blow when someone has someone to blame. And HR is an advisor. They are a resource. And I think it's hard for people to understand that HR is both the employee themselves and a representative of the business. And that's where that stigma of like HR is two-faced, and that definitely comes up a lot. I think it also kind of stems from that, and why HR is so misunderstood, because it is kind of hard to reason that HR is both the employee and the business. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And we have to have the right people in role to ensure that we are breaking down those stigmas, because like anything else, there are people who are not in the right roles, and kind of, keep these stigmas alive for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I always looked at it, like in terms of like layoffs. So, and I had a first boss tell me this and like really resonated with me, is like once the employee gets over that like ego type of like, wow, I just been laid off, like we're freeing them up to go do something that is a better fit for them personally. So what they're doing now is like, maybe it's a reduction in the organization, and maybe they're cutting their team from 12 to 9. It's like typically you go after the lower performers, and lower performers, it's usually not a passion, it's not a good fit. And so we're freeing that person up to go do something that's a better fit for them in the long term. And typically in the 7 years of HR that I've been in, like we always do what's right for the employee. There's a severance package there. We give them resources. We help them. It's not like just cut them dry, kick them out the door, like see you never. There's always been, every organization I've worked for, we've always done the right thing and take care of those people and help them land on their feet.
Yep, I'm with you. Same here. And I really feel for people who work at organizations that don't always do the right thing. And we see this all the time in the news, that there are companies out there. I mean, listen, there are 3 sides to every story. There's the there's the one side, the other side, and the truth. And so we see, I literally shared some stories today on Instagram, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that's exactly what happened. However, that's what the world is seeing. And that is where HR really has to come in to make sure that all of that risk is mitigated. And maybe they did do that. Maybe those companies did mitigate risk well, but we might never know.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are bad apples out there, just like there's bad accountants, there's bad operations people, there's bad HR people too, and bad HR departments, especially in like startup type and like environments or companies that are growing too fast, like the one recently in the news. But like I said, there's bad apples out there.
Yeah. And I'll say it, but we're talking about Peloton, and this is totally my opinion, but you know, Peloton, if anyone out there is a representative of Peloton and can come on the podcast, I will keep you anonymous. Let's talk about it. Again, 3 sides of every story. You never really know what goes on unless you're involved in the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this is the rise and the fall of Peloton. I think should be a documentary on Netflix someday. It's like $180, like the stock price, and now it's like $8.
It's insane.
Like that. Yeah.
It's insane. I know. They're actually, if anyone wants to first go follow Clark on TikTok at HRShark_, you can then not only go through a deep dive of all of his videos, you could also go through a deep dive of Peloton and the rise and fall, because there are some accounts out there that do a really good job of documenting this. But anyway, one of the questions that I alluded to before that I really am eager to hear your thoughts on is, I guess I'll preface it first. Something that I always like to say, and I actually say this because I've had to say it to myself, is that there is space for everyone in this industry. Social media, HR, podcasts, etc. And I'm always very honest on this podcast and in general, something that I've had to tell myself, because it is this, because sometimes especially in the beginning when I'm very competitive, I was feeling like, I have to be like the number one and there can't be anybody else near me. And I had to tell myself, like, no, there's strength in numbers. We're all doing something different. It is good to support one another, and there's space for everyone. And so even though I'm still super competitive and I look at my metrics every day, I still recognize that there's space for everyone. So that's my truth moment. But if someone wants to bring humor or fun to their work, and, maybe they even want to take it to content creation, how would you suggest that they start?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's like find your niche. Like, what are you good at? What are you an expert at? And like put yourself out there. Like, I remember the day when I launched, or the night before I launched, like I couldn't sleep. I was like, I'm putting myself out to the world. I'm, like I said earlier, I'm a very reserved person, like very private. It was like, I'm literally just, it helped me get out of my comfort zone. It just helped me develop a new part of me and my personality. But really just putting yourself out there, finding that niche and just being consistent and just going out there, creating content and putting it out there. And like I said earlier, like I'm working with some really cool brands, and being able to monetize my accounts is something, if you would have told me like I would be monetizing a TikTok account, like I would have told you you're crazy. And it's like anyone can do it. Like I said earlier, I just learned how to post a Instagram story like 6 months ago, like I said. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's just putting yourself out there, being unique, being yourself. And that's the great thing about TikTok, for example. It's like, it's not like this polished, like really like cleaned up look. It's just like quick little videos, short, funny. They do really, really well. And so you don't need to be this like producer or have like pay a bunch of money, like for a bunch of editing softwares. It's literally just buy a ring light, post it on it, and just post it out there and see what hits. And you tweak it as you go. And you'll be surprised on how much growth you will get from TikTok and Instagram as well. It's just the sky's the limit with these platforms right now. It's just an absolute lots of money floating around. Content creators are like 15-year-old millionaires out there.
It's insane.
It's absolutely insane.
I know that I took you a little bit away from the HR specific questions, but I do have one specific question regarding your career here to kind of close us out from this episode. And, if there's anything that's true, it's that the listeners love to hear guidance. They love advice and to understand, what the guest especially has experienced in their career. So what are some of the biggest takeaways that you would say you've had throughout your career And what advice would you give listeners who are trying to avoid burnout and enjoy their jobs? Because we know that this is a huge symptom of HR. The HR industry right now is severe burnout.
Yeah, I mean, any HR professional over the last since 2020 when COVID began has been actually through a gauntlet. Like we need a break. It has been absolutely insane, from COVID to the Great Resignation to return to the office, trying to go through those
circles
policies.
Are starting to show. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, and I make a lot of like stuff in my content about like a lot of drinking stuff. And like, personally, I don't even drink that much, but I just think it can relate to so many HR people because it's like, we need a break. But in terms of like advice that I have, it's like, be your own CEO. So like in my career, like I've bounced around a couple different places. And if I didn't feel like challenged in those roles, if I didn't feel rewarded or recognized, like put yourself out there. Like don't settle. Like life is too short to take a job that you don't love or you're not feeling challenged in. It's like, it's okay to jump around. Obviously you don't want to jump around too much and put too many employers in your resume, but like don't settle. Like don't settle for toxic environments, different things like that. Be your own CEO. Just control your own destiny. No one's going to be out there tapping you on the shoulder saying like, hey, like I'm going to continue to find you the right opportunity. You have to control your own career. And that's personally what's really helped me grow to get to where I am today, because I've taken my own journey and really just did a bunch of networking myself and reached out to different people and helped me get to where I am today. So that's the piece. And with HR, yeah, like I said, it's just like laugh at yourself. Like none of our jobs are that serious. Like HR, any function within the business, like be able to laugh at yourself, be like, don't take yourself so seriously. And in my career, I used to tear myself up when I was younger and more junior in my career. I would I would go to bed at night with work. And like now that I've gotten older and more experience under the belt, it's like, don't take yourself so serious. Like your company's going to be there. Like it's not going to burn down. Everything's okay.
Right.
It's like, don't take yourself so serious. So I would say those two things are the biggest things that in my 7 years, I've developed myself. It's like, dude, it's fine. Just relax. Everything's going to be okay. It's not going to burn down.
Right. It's so true. This is like exactly what people need to remember when it comes to taking or not taking your PTO. You taking it, yeah, sure. There's always going to be work, but you have to take it. You have to give yourself time away. The business ran before you and it will run after you. So it is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was guilty. I was checking emails at night and now it's like, you know what? Someone else, there's so many employees at this company, like someone can pick up the slack. Like it's going to be all right.
Totally. Or it's, it's probably something that can wait for the start of the day, the next day. I think that this is something, talking about going through the gauntlet, this is something that we all did learn and potentially are forgetting, because a lot of us, we are in need of a break, but we have to remember that. We have to remember that we have to give ourselves, I used to always say this on the podcast, I used to always say we have to give ourselves space and grace. And so I'm going to bring that back. We have to give ourselves space and grace to allow ourselves to have life outside of our 9 to 5 or whatever that looks like for you. So Clark, I am so thrilled that you were able to join the podcast, and I think the listeners are going to just love it. So tell us where they can connect.
Yeah, so my DMs are always open. Instagram, absolutely. Send me a DM, reach out. If you have any career questions, even HR, literally anything, like feel free to reach out. I can give you my experience, my journey, how I got to where I am today. I have an ebook as well that I've documented everything that's helped me, that I share with others. So definitely reach out for any questions. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram, like Tracy said.
Amazing. At HRShark_.
Yeah.
Make sure you go there. Well, Clark, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Hopefully we can have you back on in the future. Maybe you'll launch another ebook. I don't know. It might be manifesting something for you. But thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy.
Hey, just before you go, don't forget to subscribe to this show so that you are the first to hear when an episode drops each week. And maybe leave a 5-star review and a comment about how much you loved this episode. Plus, if you have someone in mind who would really enjoy this episode, make sure you share it with them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.